Thank you. We are on Kuf Samach Dalid Amud Aleph. Yesterday, on the bottom of Kuf Samach Gimel Amud Beis, Rav said that if you have a star which was erased with the edim and the text of the document on an erased document, it will not be a problem and it will be kosher. So it's kosher. And the Gemara says on the top, Vim Tomar Mochek V'chozer Mochek. What about the fact that we're worried that they're going to go ahead and they're going to sign? So now you have the star. And again, it was erased. You see in the background it was erased, and you have the text, and you have the edim. So why aren't we worried that Lamaisa, the edim signed, and then the guy went ahead and he erased the top of the document again and rewrote whatever he wanted? Because if he in fact did that and he erased the top after the edim had already signed it, you'd be able to tell that the top was erased twice and the bottom was only erased once, and therefore when you were presented that star in Beis Din, you would say that we will not accept the star because there's more erases on the top than on the bottom, and that means that you must have gone ahead and changed something after the edim signed. Maybe this guy's really good, and what he did was he went ahead and he spilled ink on the bottom, and he erased the bottom once before he went ahead and had the edim signed. So now the edim signed on an already erased thing. Now he goes ahead and he erases the top. So maybe when you're presented with a document which is all erased in the back, maybe what really happened was the top was clean. He went ahead and he wrote that you owe me $100. The bottom he had already erased once. When the edim signed, it was on an erased document. Then he went ahead and he erased the entire type and said, you owe me $1 million. Now everything looks kosher because erased and erased. Why are we worried about that? Says Gemara, Amar Abaye, Kasav Rav, Eina edim chot min al hamachak elim kein nimchak b'fneim. You don't have to be worried that that's what happened because the edim wouldn't have signed on the bottom had the bottom already been erased because they would be suspicious. And therefore we're saying that if you have a document that's totally erased in the background, we're going to accept it. Why are we not worried that this happened? Because edim would have never signed on the bottom had it been erased beforehand. And therefore if you have an erased document where the top and the bottom look exactly alike, you have to assume, and you can assume, that the edim signed after having seen the top, and there was no erasure after the edim signed, because had there been an erasure after the edim signed, you'd be able to tell that the top would be even more erased than the bottom. So as long as the document looks erased equally throughout, you will be able to accept that document. So the Gemara, is that true? Meisvei, we have a problem. Hu al haniyar ve'edav al hameche kasher. Put on your thinking hats. If you have the case where the text, now the top is clean, the yar means clean, and machak means erased. So the top is unerased, and the edim are on the erased, and it's kosher. What's the problem with that? If the edim are on the erased and the top is clean, what's the problem? If they present it, it's going to be kosher. What's the problem with that? Well, that might not be a problem when the top is not erased, but why are we allowing a document like that to be circulating? What can happen? The guy can go ahead and just erase the top and rewrite whatever he wants, and then it'll be erased one time, and it'll be kosher. So why are we allowing a document with edim on the bottom that's on an erased part and the top being clean? Because at the end of the day, we're going to worry that the guy's going to come ahead and erase everything. It's going to be one clearly erased document. Says the Gemara, you're right. In general, we only accept a niyar that's totally erased if it's equally erased throughout. And we don't accept a niyar, we don't accept a document that's erased on the bottom and clean on top, because we're afraid the guy's going to erase it. We will accept a document that's erased on the bottom and clean on top, if on the bottom when the edim signed, we signed on a document that was erased on the bottom and clean on top. Now we're not worried the guy's going to go ahead and erase the top, because if he does, we're going to see that on the bottom the edim said we signed on a document where it was clean on top. And now if there's an erasure on top, so we're going to know that he changed it. Says Gemara, yeah, but you're dealing with a smarter than that guy. Why? Where did the edim write this? They signed their name, and then where did they write that we're signing on a document that's erased on the bottom and clean on top? If they wrote it on the bottom of the document underneath their names, the guy's going to come along with a scissor and cut it off, and then you'll just think that the document was a little bit of a smaller document, and you'll have the two edim, and it won't say that the bottom was erased and the top was clean, and then you'll present this, and then you have that problem. Eloi, if it's on top of where the Eidim Machiklei, then when he erases the top of the document, he's going to erase this part also. Then again, you'll have their signature on erased part, and you'll have the new part being erased also because he erased everything. Says Gemara, no. Dichtive ben sada l'sada. He wrote between the sadim. So you have one witness sign here. Right underneath it, you wrote, we signed on the bottom, which was erased, and the top was clean. Underneath that, the second witness signed. Now there's no way for him to get rid of it or to erase it, because if he erases it, then we're going to see that there is something fishy going on the bottom. Because you're ready, even though the bottom was erased once, you can see that between the two lines was erased twice. And you can say, what was there? And then this way, if you have that type of document, then you can present a document that's erased on the bottom and clean on top. But otherwise, you cannot present a document that's erased on the bottom and clean on top. Because at the end of the day, unless the Eidim say, we signed on and erased on the bottom and clean on top, then we're afraid that if we present that type of document and we circulate that type of document, he's going to go ahead and erase the top, and the whole thing will be erased. It'll look very nice, and it'll be a problem. If that's true, then let's say the seifa. If it's true that the case of clean on top and erased on the bottom is going to be kosher, assuming that we have this line that the Eidim write, we signed on and erased on the bottom, clean on top, kosher. Ema seifa, then what about the bottom? The seifa case, hu alamechak, if it's the opposite. If the star is on the erased part, ve'edav ala niyar paso, and then the Eidim are on the bottom, it's pasul. What's the problem? Amai pasul. Hachanami nichtavu hachi. Why can't the Eidim on the bottom write? Anach nesade chatimna al niyar. We signed on the part that's clean. Ushtara amelcha. And the top part is on the part that's already been erased. Says the Gemara, hashtanami mayamris. What's the problem? Moche chozer moche. What's going to happen? If the Eidim sign on the niyar part, so we say that it's pasul. Why can't the Eidim write that we signed on the niyar part and the top was on the mechek? What's wrong with that? Because what's the guy going to do? He's going to go ahead and he's going to erase the top part again. Once it's erased once, it's going to be erased twice. What's the big deal? But you said it's not a problem because at the end of the day, if they erase it on the top again, we're going to notice. Yeah, it says in Gemara, that's only hani mili hecha dechatime sadei amechka. This is an interesting point. Until now, we've been talking about that if he erases it more than once, we're going to be able to compare and see that he erased it more than once. Says the Gemara, that's only within the same document. That means if you see that the bottom of the document, let's say the entire thing is erased now. If you see that the top was erased twice and the bottom is erased once, you're going to get all fishy. But at the end of the day, if on the same document the bottom is clean, because in this case the Eidim are signing on a bottom that's clean, then we're not going to be able to tell by comparing it to a clean part of the document that the top was erased only once or twice or three times. So at the end of the day, we only say that we can tell how much it was erased when we compare it to the same document. But when we go ahead and we compare it to the bottom, which wasn't erased at all, we're not going to be able to tell. And therefore, we're going to pasul a document where the Eidim sign on the bottom on the clean part, even if they write that we're signing on the clean part and the top was erased, because by looking at that document, we have no way of knowing that the guy only erased it once on top. Maybe he's going to erase it after the Eidim signed, and we'll have no way of knowing that he did it after the Eidim signed. Says the Gemara, so why don't you go ahead and take another document and compare it to the top, and you'll see based on another document that you know was erased once, you'll be able to tell whether the top was erased once or twice. If it's erased once, it's fine, because the Eidim said, we went ahead and we signed on a document that was erased. But if you see that the top was erased twice, you'll know that they went ahead and changed it after the Eidim came along. It says Gemara, lo dami mecha da hamigilta lemecha da hamigilta. You can't compare erasers in one document to the erasure in another document because every document has a different width. Some of the ore, some of the leather, some of the document, again, if it's assuming it's not made out of paper. Even within paper, you can tell. If you compare paper on like a heavy-duty paper, the erasure on a heavy-duty paper is going to be different than the erasure on a cheap Dollarama paper. So you can't compare those two type of papers. So if you go ahead and you have a niyar, if you have a star that was written on a certain type of niyar, a certain type of document, which was, again, like a parchment, if it's a thick parchment, and you say, well, let's compare. So here's the parchment that we're dealing with, and the Eidim said on the bottom, we signed on, the top was clean, the top was already erased. We're going to compare it, and we want to see whether the top was erased once or twice. If you compare it to a thick document, then you might not be able to tell. If you compare it to a thin document, maybe the thin document which was erased once will look like the thick documents which was erased twice. So you have to compare within the same Megillah. Now the Gemara says, well, okay, we have a little bit of a problem. But again, the Gemara is trying to figure out how, just like in the case where the top was clean and the Eidim signed on the bottom, which was erased, we came up with a solution by saying that let the Eidim write this extra line between the two signatures, that the top was clean, the bottom was erased. So now we're trying to figure out, is there a way to use a document where the top was machak and the bottom was clean? And why can't the Eidim sign on the bottom? We're signing on the clean part, but the top was erased. Says Gemara, well, we can't do that because at the end of the day, we have no idea, we have no way to know how many times the top was erased. Says Gemara, I have a great idea. You have this document, where we bring this document, and the Eidim on the bottom wrote on the clean part, and they signed that says the top was machak. We have no way to know how many times it was machak. Yes, we do. Because once we go ahead and we're able to clarify that these Eidim are the Eidim, whether through witnesses or through the Eidim himself, now we've said, okay, this document is a kosher document. Once we know it's a kosher document, what can we do with the Eidim on the bottom? What can we do with the signatures? We can really erase them. Because once we've clarified that it's a clean document, now we can start experimenting with the document. So if you want to know whether the top of the document, again, we have Eidim on the bottom. When we come ahead and we want to be Mekayim Ishtar, so either the Eidim themselves come and say, this is my signature, or you have two other Eidim who say, this is the signature of those two Eidim who signed. These are kosher signatures. Once you have that, theoretically, you don't need the bottom of the document anymore. The Beis Din can put a stamp on the document that has been Mekayim, and Beis Din can go ahead now and erase the bottom. So the Gemara is saying, why don't we say that we can have a case where you'll have the Eidim signing on the bottom on the clean part, the top is machak, and let the Eidim say, we signed on the bottom which was clean and the top was machak. The Gemara says, that's a problem because a guy can erase it 100 times. No. After we're Mekayim the star, now Beis Din go ahead, erase the bottom, and you'll be able to then compare within the same document the top to the bottom. If you see that the top, after erasing the Eidim signature, if you see that the top doesn't look like the bottom, then you'll know that the guy went ahead and he erased it an additional time after the Eidim signed. Because again, the Eidim are writing that the top was already erased when they signed it. It was already on an erased parchment. It had been erased once. But now we have no way of knowing was it erased once or twice. By erasing the bottom part of the Eidim, now that you erase it, if the top and the bottom look exactly alike, you know that the guy didn't go ahead and play around with it after the Eidim had signed the bottom. If they look different, then you'll know that the guy went ahead and he played around with the top after signing the bottom, after the Eidim signed the bottom, and you will not accept it. Why is that not good? Says the Gemara, Amar Avoshia, Eino Domen Nimchak Ben Yomo Lo Nimchak Ben Shnei Yamim. You still have a problem even within the same document. Because if you do that and you start erasing the same document, if you erase the whole thing at once, it's one thing. But if you erase the bottom at a different time than the top, you still won't be able to tell clearly whether the top was erased once or twice, because if it was erased a day ago or 2 days ago or 3 days ago or a month ago, it won't be clear whether it was the same, whether it was erased once, twice, or 3 times.
Because time affects it.
Because time affects it. The Lishay, the Rashbam takes out this Gemara, takes out this word, and basically says that Rabbi Yirmiyah is giving another answer. Rabbi Yirmiyah, Chashina leBeis Din Toa. No, we're not going to start dealing with Beis Din doing erases. Beis Din, they went to school to be Rabbanim. It's like asking a Rav to schlep packages. Like, we didn't go to school to be able to schlep packages. They didn't go to school to be able to figure out whether this is erased once, twice, 3 times. They don't want to start dealing with that. We need a forensics specialist over there, which we don't have at the time. Therefore, we're not going to start dealing with was it erased once, was it right. If you want to look at it and say the Eidim signed and they said the top was machak, that's one thing. But to start saying Eidim's going to start, or that the Beis Din's going to start erasing and trying to figure out is it exactly the same or not exactly the same, starting to use a microscope and all that stuff, that we're not going to deal with. So therefore, the Chazer, Rav says, because we're at the 2 dots, we're going to go to a different topic. Rav says if you have a star where everybody is on a machak, Shtar hu ve'edav ala machak is going to be kosher, because by looking at it, you'll be able to tell whether the guy went ahead and erased it again after the Eidim signed. If everything looks glad, everything looks exactly the same, you know that the Eidim signed at the same time that they saw the top, and he didn't go ahead and erase it afterwards. That's shtar, that's hu ve'edav ala machak, that's going to be kosher. Then again, if you have a shtar where the top is clean and the bottom is erased, we said that type of star by itself is going to be pasul, because we're afraid that the guy's going to go ahead and he's going to erase the top, and then it's going to be a star where hu ve'edav are on mechak, and it's going to be kosher. He's going to be able to fool people. So therefore, we will accept a star where the top is clean and the bottom is erased, if on the bottom, when the Eidim sign on the erased part, in between their 2 signatures, in between the 2 lines, they write, we signed on a star that was clean on top and erased on the bottom, because this way the guy can't go ahead and cut it off, and he can't go ahead and erase that line either, because at the end of the day, if he erases that line, we'll clearly be able to see between the 2 signatures that there's an additional eraser there. And finally, in the case where the top is erased and the bottom is clean, we're not going to go ahead and we're not going to take that either, because even if the Eidim would write in between their 2 lines that the bottom was clean and the top was machak, we have no way to tell how many times the top is machak, and he can go ahead and he can change the top and he can write whatever he wants. Good? Okay. Start again. Weiter. If you weren't following till now, pick it up. That it's makusher. That means what? If Eidim sign on a makusher get. Remember, we had the makusher get which was folded over. So we said, where do you sign on a makusher get? Somewhere not on the front, somewhere on the back. So therefore we said, if it's a makusher get, he says, if it signs on the front, b'di'evet, it's fine. Why? Because what can you do? You can open it up and make it into a pashut. And a pashut get, you sign on the front. A pashut document, you sign on the front. So if you have the makusher, even though you're supposed to sign on the back, at the end of the day, if you sign on the front, it's kosher, because if you just open it up, now it's a pashut, and it looks like a pashut. There's only one problem, says the Gemara. The Gemara says that there's a difference in the dating system between the makusher and the regular. And therefore, if you're going to open it up, we're going to have a little bit of a problem. Therefore, you have to sign on the back so that we know that even if you open up, we'll know. If you sign on the back, we'll know that this was a makusher. We have to be able to know that this was at one point a makusher because it affects the dating. Because if it's a star that's a regular star, the dating is going to be different. What's the problem if the dating is different? I'm just saying it outside, and then we'll read it inside. Well, if the makusher gets are always dated a year later, for example, and then you open it up, so now it's going to say a year later, and you're going to be able to collect. Let's just see, again, we'll read it inside, and I'll explain as we go along. So if you sign a makusher on the front, it's going to be kosher because you can open it up and make it into a pashut get. Rabbi says that can't be true because we're afraid that if you change a makusher into a regular, it's going to be a problem. Why? The way that they date a star pashut and a star makusher is different. Why? Pashut melech shana monin lo shana shtayim monin lo shtayim. Very interesting. When you write a pashut document, you date it pashut. So they go based on the king, assuming that they were going based on the king. So let's say you're the king. So King Achashverosh in year number 1 of his reign, let's say he starts on January 1st, 2017, Lahavdil, January whatever they start in the United States, January 15th, I think. I forgot exactly the date. So he starts January 1st. So anytime during 2017, it's going to say in year 1 of King Achashverosh. And in 2018, it's going to say in year 2 of King Achashverosh. That's a regular star. Makes sense. So if I take out a document, if I take out a loan from you in March 2017 or in July 2017, it's going to say in year 1 of King Achashverosh, in July of year 1 of King Achashverosh. That makes sense. Makusher, but when you have a star makusher, which we said was used for a get, for instance, so melech shana monin lo shtayim, shtayim monin lo gimel. We make it more complicated. And if he started in 2017, the day after he starts, we write in year 2 of his reign. Why do we do that? Says the Gemara, because that's what the non-Jews did. That's what the Rashbam says. Let's see. Says the Rashbam, top left. De'ilu zmano shel pashurim nichtav b'shana rishona she'amar hamelech ein monin lo l'shana shtayim monin lo shtayim aval mekusheri malach shana kosin b'shtar shtayim. If you went ahead and started in January 1st, 2017, if you're writing the same star, if you're writing a star in July, so if you're writing a pasha star, you're going to write in year number 1 of King Achashverosh. If you're writing a mekusher star on the same date, you're going to write in year number 2 of King Achashverosh. Shtayim monin lo shalosh, klomar. Magdimin lo shana, sharei mina ga'uma kedilakaman lahakdil lemelech shana. Why are they going in a makusher and they're dating it for the next year? Because that's what the non-Jews did. Why would the non-Jews do that? Because if he starts on day number 1, then once he has 1 day under his belt, it's already year number 2. It looks better that he's in year number 2. Okay, therefore, why do we do it for a makusher? It's one thing for them to lie. Why are we doing for a makusher? We're doing it specifically to complicate things. Why would you want to complicate things by a makusher? Well, what did we say? What's the reason that we have a star makusher in the first place? Remember, we said because of the Kohanim who were divorcing their wives when they were upset. We wanted to prevent them from divorcing their wives. So what did we do? We went in and we tried to make it harder that they have to have this makusha, which has to be sewn, and by the time they get around to finding somebody to sew it, they're going to say, forget it, I might as well just stay married to her. So too over here, if we're complicating the dating system, it's another way to complicate things and another thing that might prevent them from actually wanting to go ahead with the divorce. So what's the problem? Okay, so now again, we have a star pashut that was on July 1st, and it was said in the first year of King Achashverosh. Now we have a makusha, which was on July 1st, and it said in the second year of King Achashverosh. What's the problem? So think about it. Let's say it outside for a second. If I give you a star makusha on July 1st, 2017, July 4th, July 5th, whatever today's date is, 2017, and it says in the second year of King Achashverosh, what happens when I open it up and make it a pashut? Automatically, that document is now a post-dated document, because now when I look at it, if Beis Din will look at the makusha, which says in the second year of King Achashverosh, they're going to know that that was July 5th, 2017. If they look at a pashut, that says in the second year of King Ahasuerus, what are they going to know? That's July 5th, 2018. And that becomes a big problem. Because, again, if I have a pashut and I give it to Beis Din, they're going to know that when it says the first year, it's going to mean 2017. If I have a makusher and it says the second year, they're going to know that means 2017. But if I take the makusher, he's saying if you take a makusher and you write on the bottom, it's kosher, b'di'evet. Again, according to the other opinions where you sign the back of the makusher, and if you sign the front, b'di'evet, it's not okay. You're always going to know that was a shtar makusher, because you're going to see that the signatures are on the back, even when you open it up. But if he's allowing you to go ahead and to sign the bottom of a makusher because you can make it into a pashut anyway, that's going to be a problem. Because if I go ahead and make it into a pashut, now all of a sudden, I can go ahead and change everything that happened. Let's see what that means. Again, Lamaisa, what does that mean? V'zimnin diyazif minei zuze b'mekusher. What's going to happen? You're going to borrow money from me with a mekusher today, on July 4, 2017. Umisrami le zuze beini beini. When is that money due? It's going to be due, let's say, it'll be due on December 31st, 2017. Right? And now you pay me back before then. Uparale, and you pay me. Va'amarle, and now you say to me, when you pay me back, again, you pay it back before the year is over. You pay it back, it's due July 4th, 2018, you pay it back on December 2017. When you pay back a loan, what do you usually want from me? The shtar. You don't want a receipt. You preferably want the shtar to rip it up. Havli shtar, you say, give me the shtar. For Amarle, I'm a smart guy, and I said, irkisli, I lost it. I didn't really lose it. I lost it, but I didn't lose it. So then what do you say? Well, give me a receipt. V'chasav le taver. So what am I going to write? I'm going to write that you paid me back the loan on December 30th, 2017. Right? What does this shtar say as a makusher? It says in the second year of King Ahasuerus, which is what? You borrowed the money on July 4th on a makusher, July 4th, 2017. When you paid back on December 31st, 2017, and you have your receipt, everything's fine. What happens if I go ahead and I unravel that makusher, and now it says, as a pashut, that you borrowed money from me on July 4th of the second year of King Ahasuerus? What does that now become? Not 2017, now it becomes 2018. What does your receipt say on it? December 30th, 2017. When you come, or when I come to you to collect now in July 2018, or whenever that is, or July, or in July 2019 for the 2018, what are you going to say to me? Here's a receipt. What am I going to say to you? That's for a different loan in 2017. This is for the 2018 loan. You're going to say, wait, it's the same loan. And I'm going to say, no, it's not. And because I went ahead and I undid the makusher into a pashut, I now got another year. And now the receipt that I gave you is no longer good. Because even though it was good for 2017, when this was a 2017 document, because it was a makusher, because it said the second year of King Ahasuerus, when now I go ahead and I make it into a pashut and it says the second year of King Ahasuerus, it means you borrowed the money on July 4th, 2018. Now your receipt for December 30th, 2017 is worthless. Yishmak. Says the Gemara, V'chimate zmane mashvile pasha. When the time comes next year, I'm going to make it into a pashut. Va'amar le hani hashta diyadzis minai. And I'm going to say, you went ahead and you borrowed again from me after that receipt. So how can you go ahead and say it's okay to sign on the front? Kasavars Rabbi Chanina, the answer is, he holds ein kosvin shover. We don't write receipts. And if a guy doesn't give you back the actual shtar when you borrow money, then you don't have to pay him. And therefore, if you don't write receipts, there's nothing to worry about. Because the guy can't go ahead, so therefore you can sign the bottom. Because at the end of the day, no matter when it is, when he comes to you for the money, then Lamaisa you're going to say, give me the shtar. If he doesn't give you the shtar, and worst case scenario, what's going to happen? If you take a makusha which says the second year, and he makes it into a pashut, so worst case scenario, now you'll have an extra year to be able to pay the loan. But at the end of the day, it's only a problem if you're worried that he's going to give you a receipt and keep the document for himself. But if we hold that, we don't do receipts. Now, if you hold that, you do receipts, which is what most people hold, so then, Einachanami, you can't sign a makusher in the front, because if you sign it in the front, it can look like it's a pashut. Again, if you sign it in the back, there's no problem opening it up, because we'll know by looking at the item in the back that it's actually a makusher. Good? Fine. Zog the Gemara. Hahushtara, I'm not going to skip. Not today. Umi Baki. Rebbe b'mekusher. We said that Rebbe was the one who asked Rabbi Chanina all these questions. The Gemara is asking just technically. Rebbe's asking all these questions about Rabbi Chanina by a mekusher. What does Rebbe know about mekushers? We have a story that Rebbe knows nothing about mekushers. Ve'ahu mekusher de'asal akame de Rebbe. Ve'amar Rebbe. Rebbe said, shtar me'uchar zeh. It's a post-dated shtar. Now we know that a star Mekusher is not post-dated. It just says a second year because it always adds a year. He thought it was post-dated. What does that show that Rebbe knows about Mekusher? Nothing. Zeh v'amar lei zonin l'Rebbe. Zonin was the name of a person. He says kach menaga shaluma zu melach shana monin lo shtayim shtayim monin lo shosh, and that's what we do. So how can Rebbe go ahead and start giving Rebbe Chanina a hard time if he knew nothing about Mekushers? Says the Gemara, Basra deshama mizonin svara. No, Rebbe only started giving Rebbe Chanina a hard time after he learned this from Zonin. Once he knew it, he started giving him a hard time, and he asked him the kasha. Zok the Gemara, hahu shtar davakasa be b'shnas ploni arkin. Now there was a time when they didn't go ahead and they didn't necessarily write in the first year. So sometimes they wrote in the first year of King Achashverosh, in the second year of King Achashverosh, and then depending on whether it was a Mekusher or a Pashut, you knew it was either the first year or really the second year or really the third year. There are other times when they just wrote the guy's name, and then they wrote a title at the end. So if they wrote that we went ahead and we lent you the money on July 4th of Shnas Achashverosh Arkon. Achashverosh Arkon was the name given to Achashverosh the first year of his reign. And it was the second year of his reign, they gave him another name which was called Achashverosh Digon. And in the third year, they gave him another name. So by looking at that document, you would know that it was Achashverosh's first year. Again, how that works with Mekusher and Pashut, let's just keep that out of the picture for now. Seemingly that wouldn't work by Mekusher. They wouldn't have done that by Mekusher. They would have wrote that it's a second year. But again, Achashverosh, Bishnas Achashverosh, Ploni is the name of the guy. Bishnas Achashverosh Arkan. So what would you do? Amar Bechanina, Yivdak Emasai Amad Arkan Be'arkan Osel. Check when he went ahead and he started. Says the Gemara, V'dilma da'arech malchusei. Maybe it means not that he just started now, but that he's been for a long time. Maybe it just means Achashverosh, who's been a aroch, who's been a king for a long time. Remember Roshia, no. Kach minaga shalom azu. Shana rishona koren lo arkon, shnia koren lo digon, and therefore, etc. Therefore, when I say July 4th of the year of Achashverosh Arkon, I know that that's July 4th of the first year of Achashverosh. And therefore, if there was a loan that was before then, you'll know when it's due, and you'll know when the lakuchos are due, etc., etc. Says the Gemara, when he calls him Achashverosh Arkon, they were already knew what was going on in Israeli politics. Maybe when he calls him Achashverosh Arkon, the first year of Achashverosh, maybe it's the first year of his third reign. Right? Only in Israel, the prime minister comes 17 different times. So Benjamin Netanyahu is in his third reign already. So are we calling Benjamin Netanyahu in his third time around as prime minister? Are we calling him in his first year of his third time around as Arkon? Because then if we're going to go ahead and call Achashverosh Arkon, but now we're going to get complicated because now maybe it's his third time around. Maybe it was when it was his first time around. If it was from when it was his first time around, then anything that was sold after that loan from 20 years ago is going to be lakuchos. If it was only, or it's going to be mishubad. If it's only from his third time around, then at the end of the day, anything that was sold before then is not going to be mishubad. Says the Gemara, don't worry. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyahu Arkon Digon. No, if it's the second time around, then they write Digon, which is a name for the second year, which also the second time. So if it's his first time around, then it's just Achashverosh Arkon. If it's second time around his first year, it's Achashverosh Arkon Digon. If it's third time around, it's Achashverosh Arkon, whatever the third time around. If it's the second year and the second time around, then it's Achashverosh Digon Arkon, etc. So if it just says Achashverosh Arkon, it means the first year of his first time around. Achashverosh Digon, second year of his first time around. If it's the second time around, then you put Arkon Digon. If it's the second year of a second time, Digon. If it's the third time, etc., etc. But by looking at it, you'll know whether it's his first, second, or third time around. Once we're talking about first, second, and third times around, we'll do something complicated but connected. Tana Rabbanan Hareini Nazir. If a guy says I'm a Nazir, how long does he have to be a Nazir for?
Minimum 30 days.
30 days. One period of 30 days. Sumchas Amar, if he says Hareini Nazir Hina, that's once. If he says Hareini Nazir at 30 days, or if he says Hina, that's also once. Digon, which means twice. Hareini Nazir Digon, that means Shtaim, 2 periods of 30 days. Trigon, now these are laws also. What's Trigon? Trigonometry is 3. Tetragon, what's a tetragon? 4. Pentagon, 5. So if he says Hareini Nazir Pentagon, that's 5 in a row. If we're talking about these different things, Tana Rabbanan, bias, if you have a house. Now a house we know becomes a problem with Nigayim, if there's Nigayim, with Saras. So if the house is Ugol, if it's round, if it's Digon, if it's 2-sided, Trigon, if it's 3-sided, Pentagon, if it's 5-sided, Eino Matame bin Nigayim. And Exeris says it can't have Tumas Nigayim. Tetragon, if it's 4-sided, a square, like a regular house, Matame bin Nigayim. It has tumas negoim. Why? Minohan. How do you know this? Because the pasuk by negoim says twice the word kiros. The Tana Rabbanan lamala omer kiros, which is shtayim. Lamata omer kiros. When it's talking about the walls, it says it in plural kiros shtayim. Harei kan arba. It says v'ras hanega v'nei bekiros habayis. And in the next pasuk, 2 pasukim later, it says v'shavagim ayom ashvi v'nei pasa hanega bekiros habayis. From kiros, we learned that in order to have a nega in the bayis, it needs to have 4 sides, 4 walls. If it has more than 4 sides or less than 4 sides, it's not an exeris akasav of tumas negoim on a bayis. Good. Hahu mekusher. There was a geb mekusher. The asal akami de Rebbe. V'amar Rebbe. We had this already. Ein zman bezeh. Where's the time? Amle Rabbi Shimon be Rabbi Levi. Shema being sharv muvlets inside between the lines. Pal yivachaz. So he opened it up. He tore it open and he saw it. Hadar chaza be Rebbe kvishus. Then he looked at Rabbi Shimon and he looked at him with very disappointed eyes. Why was he disappointed at Rabbi Shimon? Amar le lav ana kasve Rabbi Yehuda chayte kasve. So the Rashbam explains 2 different possibilities, but he explains the reason he looked at Rabbi Shimon because he thought that Rabbi Shimon wrote it, and Rabbi was not a fan of get mekushers because too many things can go wrong. He felt get mekushers should not be written. So what does Rabbi Shimon do? Rabbi Shimon, his son, defends himself and says, "What do you want from me? I didn't write it. Rabbi Yehuda wrote it. Blame him." Amar le kilcha milashon harazeh. Stop telling me lashon hara. All you had to say was I didn't write it. You didn't have to tell me you actually wrote it. When we're talking about lashon hara, let's go. Zimnin hava yasiv kamei v'kapasik sidra b'sever Tehillim. One time Rabbi Shimon was sitting in front of Rabbi, his father, and Rabbi was finishing Tehillim. Now you have to remember, he wasn't reading art scroll Tehillim like we have today. He was reading Tehillim that were handwritten on a piece of parchment. It was beautiful handwriting. Amar Rebbe, Kama miyushar ksavzeh. Beautiful. Who wrote this? Amar le, Lav ana kasvei Yehuda chayte kasvei. I didn't write it. Yehuda wrote it. Amar le, Kilcha mi lashon hara zeh. Stop telling lashon hara. Says Gemara, I understand. Bishlam hasa make a lashon hara. I understand when he says that he's the one who did a mekusher and you don't like it. That's lashon hara. Elahacha my lashon hara ikka. But over here, when he's saying that this is beautiful handwriting, who wrote it? And he says Rabbi Yehuda wrote it. That's lashon hara. Mishum de Rav Dimi, Ditani Rav Dimi, Achua de Rav Safra, La'olam ha'yisaper adam mitavaso shal chavero, shemitoch tovaso bali de ra'aso. Anytime we go ahead and we talk too much good about somebody, either the guy himself is going to say, well, he's great, but, or somebody else around them is going to say, yeah, but you don't know about this, and therefore you shouldn't say anything nice about people. Now again, the Mefarshim clarify, it doesn't mean you shouldn't say anything nice. Different ways to understand this. Maybe it means you shouldn't say too much nice. You shouldn't over-exaggerate it. You shouldn't say too much. Because if you could just say something nice, he did a nice thing, that's fine. Nobody's going to go ahead and say he did something bad or he's a bad person. But if you start praising somebody too much, then at the end of the day, everybody's going to sit there and be like, oh, come on, he's not that nice. Or you're going to say, he's great, but. So therefore, when you go ahead and you praise somebody, don't praise them too much. 1 second. Amar Rav. Shalosh averos ein adam nitzo mehen b'chol yom. There are 3 averos that everybody does every day. Here avera. Everybody thinks about doing an avera at least once. And if you didn't, now you just did. V'iyun tefila, and a lack of concentration. V'lashon hara, and speaking lashon hara. Lashon hara sal kedai. Every single person speaks lashon hara every single day. Says in Gemara, ela avak lashon hara. Everybody speaks some form of lashon hara, some aspect of lashon hara. It might not be straight out lashon hara, but everybody speaks some aspect of lashon hara. If you want to see an interesting case, see the Gemara in Erchin Tesvav Beis about a fire in the house. That's avak lashon hara. Amar Yud Amarav. Rov begeza, most people, you have to be worried that they steal at some point, or they try to, cut corners at some point. Umiyut barayos. You don't have to be worried that most people are chashud barayos. Most people are not going to be chashud barayos. V'akol b'lashon hara. Everybody you have to be worried about lashon hara. B'lashon hara sakadaitach. If you're worried, everybody's going to say lashon hara. Ela avek lashon hara. Everybody, you need to be worried, says some type of lashon hara.